Hi there, Rebecca with Standing Bear Healing here. I think one of the most difficult things for any of us is to be completely open and authentic about everything that we are and everything we have been through. And yet, recently, a new mentor of mine, in no uncertain terms, told me that if I was not going to tell 100% of my story, that basically that was inauthentic and that I was, I guess, sort of missing the point, and that he said that the world needed my story, and I think the world needs your story too. And I know that this is very difficult for me, and it's probably difficult for you too. So to all of you healers or would-be healers out there, I just want to take a brave step forward and say, come with me, share your story, tell your truth. And so in this moment, I choose to do that. I was raised in a family with 4 children. I was the third. My father was a United Methodist minister. My mother, for most of my childhood, was a stay-at-home mom. And we were raised to believe that we were this ideal family, and that everybody said, oh, you're the perfect family, 4 lovely children who were so well behaved and intelligent and accomplished in school and all that sort of thing. And because of that, I always wondered what was wrong with me, that I was raised in this really perfect family, and yet I struggled with suicidal depression since I was 13 years old. And that at 11 years old, I sat down with myself, and I think my father had just gotten a subscription to this new magazine called Psychology Today, and I read an article about self-esteem, and I realized, they called me Becky when I was a child, and I sat down with myself at 11 and said, Becky, you clearly have an issue with self-esteem, and so what are you going to do about it? And so basically, since I was 11, I've been working on myself and trying to heal, and never really understood why I was the one who just couldn't seem to finish things, couldn't, lots of self-sabotage, and just could, like I did well in school. I got my undergraduate degree in chemistry and like a minor equivalent in biology and sociology and women's studies and art history. I said I had academic ADHD, and then later in life had career ADHD, but at least now I know the direction I'm going in and why I'm here. And the reason I know that is because when I was in medical school here at the University of New Mexico, and it was my lifelong dream to become a physician and to help people. And when at that first year of medical school, that old, I don't know what to call it, like in a way I want to say sort of tongue-in-cheek, that old friend depression came back, because of course it's no friend at all. But it had visited me countless times throughout my life. And so there it came again. And I thought, oh no, not now, not when all my dreams have come true. And I loved being in medical school. I loved learning and just expanding my mind and my knowledge, and knowing that someday I was going to be able to be of service to people. And then here comes the depression again. So I plopped myself into therapy, the only therapy I knew I could afford, which was free at the Indian hospital here. And the therapist was, quite frankly, awful. She was awful. But it was free, so I just kept going every week. And the one thing I'll say is that she asked me a few really good questions in really good timing. And because of that, on January 14th of that year, I suddenly remembered that my dad had molested me. And I had been dancing around that truth for some time. And when I was a child, I said, when I was an adult, I would tell people the only good thing about my childhood was my dad. My dad loved me. My dad supported me and believed in me. And I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. And so here comes the depression. Then came the flashbacks and the nightmares and the severe PTSD, inability to eat, sleep, was not functioning very well at all. And And I made it through that first year of medical school. I said, well, not in good shape, but I made it through. And towards the end, I finally told one of the deans of the medical school, saw that I was struggling, and he said, I'm going to personally tutor you. And he arranged for a little private room for us to meet in once a week. And I'll be honest, the first time I went there, I was shaking. I was terrified that he was going to accost me. And then it turned out he was just the sweetest, most loving, supportive man. And so he tutored me every week. And I wasn't someone then at all to share anything about myself, right? And I finally, one day, just because I didn't want him to feel like I was struggling because I didn't care or I was lazy or whatever, I finally told him what I was going through. And his response was, well, Rebecca, we give a leave of absence for things like that, you know? And he said, you know, go ahead and finish your first year. I don't remember if he said that or not, but that was my decision. I did. And then they granted me a leave of absence to go do therapy. And they actually said to me, you know, we need people like you. You know, you've been through this. Go do your healing and come back. And it ended up, I couldn't come back the following year. And then I came back 2 years later. And by then I had developed chronic illness. And so physically, I just wasn't even close to being capable of the rigors of medical school. And so I think I think I only made it 2 weeks maybe. And then I went and talked to an advisor and told them that, you know, I pretty much needed minimum 9 hours sleep a day, and I needed to eat every 2 hours, and I was just very weak and even developing a lot of brain fog. So I was like, you know, what happened in the last 2 years? I just became, you know, dumb. But turns out it was actually a lot of chronic illnesses that I'll get into at another time. But that's the beginning of my story. And the memories that came back were initially sexual abuse, and then terrible, terrible nightmares that were just, I mean, I would wake up and just my whole body hurt from the adrenaline, and I was shaking, and I wanted to jump out of my bed, but I was too terrified, and I would just hide under the covers and shake and cry. And sometimes I just didn't want to sleep because I knew I would just have nightmare after nightmare, and they were horrible. And so what eventually came out, and please know this is one of the harder parts for me, what eventually came out was some memories and visions that I didn't at first understand. And thankfully, a friend of the family pointed me in the direction of satanic ritual abuse. And to my horror, that is what turns out that it was. And I had all the memories and the flashbacks, the fears and the phobias and everything. And then later on, found all of those elements in books describing the symptoms of survivors of satanic ritual abuse. And then actually even helping me to understand where some of those fears and phobias came from, because they were related to actual satanic ceremonies in which I had been traumatized. So that's all for now. I just want to say I love you all so much, and I'm grateful for all support that I've been receiving, that I have received over the decades that I've been uncovering this and healing this, and you know, your thoughts and prayers and support as I strive to share my truth and in service to others. I really, truly appreciate. I love you. Bye-bye.